Believe it or not, it's episode 250 of
The Horror Guys. Yay! I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're here to talk about some horror movies again.
250 episodes in. We're going to have something special this week, aren't we? It's our Super 250 extravaganza. It's...
Movies.
Oh, we do movies every week.
Yeah, I know. But this is our 250th time, which means we've done at least 1,000. Well, we've done well over 1,000 movies anyway, but...
Oh, yeah.
Figuring 4 per episode on average, and yeah.
If you include the newsletter and the books, we're up to like 1,800 movies, so that's a lot.
We like movies.
But yeah, if you like the podcast, don't forget there are other ways of getting even more reviews. Mm-hmm. Here on the podcast and on HorrorGuys.com. Every week we do 4 full-length movies and a short, most weeks, unless something special is going on. In addition, if you sign up for our free weekly email letter where you get 1 email a week, no spam, no garbage, just movie reviews, that one single email each week will have 7 reviews. 6 full-length movies, the same 4 as on the site, plus 2 bonus movies, and a short. And I've been toying with the idea of adding an additional short to the newsletter also.
That would be neato.
Yeah, shorts are fun.
Shorts are fun, and there's so many good ones out there. And they're usually free to watch on YouTube or other places.
Yeah.
So,
the shorts are cool. And, of course, every month we compile all the reviews from the website and the newsletter into our monthly magazine, Horror Bulletin Monthly, which you can pick up at HorrorGuysShop.com.
You know, I've heard that Amicus movies are especially good. Do you know anything about Amicus studio movies?
Hey, the Horror Guys Guide to the Films of Amicus Productions has come out just this past week.
Huh. I didn't know that.
So Amicus was a company that came out in the early 60s to compete with Hammer. Hammer had the Horror of Frankenstein, the Curse of Dracula, or maybe it was the Curse of Frankenstein and the Horror of Dracula. I always get them backwards. They were super popular, super big, super profitable. And these two guys started, hey, we can do that too.
We too could be profitable.
So they started this competing company called Amicus Productions. And you may have heard some of their movies. Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, The House That Dripped Blood.
And there's going to be some movies that you have not heard of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I watched them along with Brian.
They did some musicals.
And they did some musicals and some really obscure things. And most of it was good, but just a lot of it didn't catch on or is not popular.
Well, a lot of people don't realize,
obscure.
Hammer did 60-some horror movies, but they did 700 movies overall.
Yeah.
They did a lot of dramas and other stuff, too.
And Amicus also did horror and not horror. Yeah, not as prolific as Hammer, but they did good work.
Almost as prolific as Hammer. I think Amicus had like 50 films and 50 horror films, and Hammer had like 60.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so not too much worse.
Yeah, it's up there.
But yeah, if you want to find out about all, not just the horror films, but all the Amicus horror films. There's this one about this single mother in the 60s who's trying to get an abortion but can't.
In England, yeah. Yeah.
It was weird.
It was weird and kind of politically tinged.
With her boyfriend, Ian McKellen, in one of his first roles.
Who might have been straight or not. And yeah, it was interesting, the stuff they dealt with. And
there's some good stuff
there. For the era,
there.
All those decades ago. Yeah.
But I guarantee you, probably no one listening has seen that movie.
Yeah.
It's a little obscure. But anyway, The Horror Guys Guide to the Films of Amicus Productions. You can pick it up at Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble or Kobo or Smashwords or, hey, HorrorGuysShop.com.
All right.
Yeah. All right, well, there's our big 250th ad for the month.
We are our own sponsor.
So this week, what movies are we talking about?
Well, it's a new kind of week. We got 2023 movies.
All of them.
Yeah, No One Will Save You, and also Beneath Us All. A 5th movie in the Subspecies series. After all these years, Bloodrise, which is actually a prequel. And another new one, Soulmates.
Cool.
Yeah, and we got a short in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to be talking about those here in a couple minutes. Mention the newsletter at horrorbulletin.com. You can go over and read our reviews of Jason Goes to Hell and Darker Than Night. Darker Than Night was a weird one from 1975.
And that was kind of cool. It's an international film. It's very 70s, very international, very weird. And
I want to say Italian, but I wouldn't swear to it right now.
I think it was Italian, yeah. That's one worth checking out.
Is the cat a killer? Is the cat not a killer?
Yeah.
Is the cat the victim? We don't know. We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
And Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday from 1993. I think it's like the 9th movie in the series, although it doesn't have a number. They also didn't call it Friday the 13th because they didn't have the legal rights. And I finally found out they stopped making Friday the 13th films like 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Not because people weren't interested in it, but because all the legal restrictions. One person owns Jason, one person owns Friday the 13th, one person owns this, that, and the other.
And that's
then
why
you got all
this
the
one
film
is
production
not
companies.
titled, this is not titled Friday the 13th.
Yeah, they were running into trouble with
a
even
thing.
as far back as 93. So yeah, that's why there's not been any Jason movies in ages. And we don't talk about Freddy because his latest movie just sucked. All right, well, let's start off with No One Will Save You from 2023. Written and directed by Brian Duffield. Stars Caitlin Dever, Elizabeth Kaluev, Zach Duhamel, and Lauren L. Murray. Hour and 33 minutes. Trailer in the show notes if you've not heard about this one. Spoiler free, what happens?
This has some really impressive acting from Caitlin Dever.
Almost a one-person show.
Almost, yeah. And she has no dialogue. I mean, it's all just her acting, carrying stuff out. It has barely any spoken words by anybody. And the action and the effects are all good, and it moves well. It's one that leaves you thinking about it after it's done, too, because the ending is not what we expected.
Yeah.
A lot of it is not what we expected.
We're not going to spoil it, but it does have a weird ending.
Yeah. And I remember fairly early on, there's a point where it reaches, and I think, well, now what's she going to do? And there's still like an hour of movie left. And they still managed to, keep us engrossed and entertained. So I thought it was really well done.
Okay, if you're new with us, we don't generally spoil the new movies. With older movies, more than 5 or 10 years old, we'll completely spoil them and read the synopsis. This week, they're all new movies, so we're not going to spoil anything for you.
Just give you a little taste.
We're going to describe what happens in the first 15 or 20 minutes, and then let you decide.
And it's all on the website if you do want to check it out.
Yeah, horrorguys.com and horrorbulletin.com both include complete spoilery synopses if you just want to read about the movies. All right, well, anyway, Bryn is obviously very nervous and seems anxious. She goes downstairs and sews something, which she puts into a package to mail. It's not really much of a plot point, but I guess she makes like doll clothes and stuff on eBay or something. On the way out, she finds a circle of dead grass in the yard, so she turns on the sprinkler. She waves at a neighbor who ignores her entirely. She then drives to town and puts her packages in the mailbox, and on the way back, she stops at her mother's grave. Walking to her car, she hides from the police chief, who is kissing his wife. This whole town seems perfectly normal, except they all seem to ignore her.
Yeah, or look at her with disdain. Yeah, so something's up there.
Yeah. She gets a new dollhouse in the mail, which brightens her day. She next writes a letter to Maud, the police chief's daughter, and eventually she goes to bed. It's a very quiet, not much to it day. Late that night, the lights come on by themselves. Bryn wakes up and hears something growling and moving around downstairs. Whatever it is laughs and comes up the stairs towards her room. It opens the door and comes in, and we get to see it. It's a tall, thin alien.
So it's science fiction-y.
And again, this is like the first 10 minutes in, so this is not a huge spoiler.
Yeah.
Bryn hides under the bed as it explores her room, and it eventually climbs out the window. Things in the house start moving all by themselves, which freaks out Bryn. She runs into an alien in the kitchen, and it sees her as well. She defends herself and stabs the thing in the head, apparently killing it. And again, we're like 15 minutes in, and we're going to stop.
And the way she does it, too, the weapon she grabs is...
What was that?
She has a little diorama. She's very, very much into decor and miniatures and stuff, and she's got a miniature town that's all illuminated and fancy and really nice. It's the bell tower of one of the buildings.
Like the steeple.
Because things are getting smashed up and chaos, and and that's what's available, and she grabs and she stabs it in the side of the neck with that. And then what happens, though?
Lots of things.
Yeah, but that was kind of the point. That,
you think she killed the alien? That'd be the end of it.
That was kind of that felt like the climax. And there's still so much more to go.
Could have been a short film in itself right there.
Yeah.
All right, well, at least I went into this one completely blind.
So did I.
I'd seen people on Facebook saying it's really good, but I didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
In the first scene, she sees a little tiny circle in the grass, and I thought, nah, it's like a little crop circle. I thought I was being funny, but that was exactly it.
Yes.
Stephen King wrote in a tweet that he compared this to the old Twilight Zone episode, The Invaders, which, if you've seen that one, it had Agnes Moorehead living in a cabin on her own, and these tiny little aliens attack.
And there's no dialogue. It's just her fighting.
Just her, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the story. Yeah, that's it.
Heavily, yeah.
A lone woman who doesn't communicate does battle with aliens on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the TV episode has a little twist at the end, and this one doesn't, but the basic plot is the same. I do have questions.
Yeah.
Were the creatures that we saw well, I can't really
we can't
read
go
this
into
without
that,
spoilers.
That's kind of spoilery, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to know my questions, you should just read the article, I suppose.
But it does leave questions at the end.
And the ending is just weird also, and I can't really explain it exactly.
Yeah.
I've read explanations online since, but
I have too. Yeah.
It's an interpretation thing.
Yeah, I think so.
But the creature design is really good here, and we get to see a lot of different variations. Some of the individuals vary in height and the length of their limbs. They are clearly heavily CGI, but they're very well done.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost no dialogue, and the bulk of the acting is from Caitlin DeVere as Bryn, and she does really well with it.
Yes she does.
I liked it.
So did I. Yeah,
okay.
Thought it was great. Yeah.
Maybe not the best one of the year, but it's probably in the top 5.
It's
top 10 for sure.
It's up there. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, definitely recommend that one. Beneath Us All from 2023.
Another good one that we liked.
Written by Brett Miller, directed by Harley Wallen, stars Sean Whalen, Maria Olsen, Katie Wallen, Jan Birch, and Harley Wallen. Sean Whalen, remember him?
Mm-hmm.
People Under the Stairs.
Yeah.
He's gotten older. Hour and 31 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free, this one was all around entertaining. There's a real monster and human monsters, and the focus is on how an orphan girl coming of age deals with them both. We get some dimension to all the main characters. None of them are just flat. It's well written, well acted, and the technical aspects were all very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those lowish budget, more indie kind of films.
Yeah,
so this is not a big theater thing.
The indie side of things. But yeah, really well done, I thought.
Yeah. Well, don't spoil it to death for us, but what goes on?
Well, it's Scandinavia in 912 A.D. 2 kids go into a field, one goes missing and is found murdered. Well, the local men track down the killer and stuff him in a coffin. They take the coffin to Vinland, the Americas, and bury him alive there.
Okay, now this is one of the few
Problem solved.
One of the few things I kind of object to.
They just jaunt off to America and then jaunt back. That's a major trip. In
these guys are
AD.
like Northern Europe, and they've got this monster in a box that we got to get rid of this thing. I know, let's cross the ocean and bury him there.
Yeah, that was a hell of a trip.
Plus, when this thing gets out of the box, he can speak English. But let's not overthink that.
I think because he was listening in, he could hear above the ground. Well,
yeah,
that's my story. I'm sticking with it.
All right. Okay, so what happens then?
Well, we switch to the present day. Julie finds a wounded bird and takes it home in a box. Elsewhere, Rebecca gets bad news about a child she was overseeing. She is a social worker facing burnout, and her boss wants to transfer her to a new position. Well, we cut to Janelle Gibbs making breakfast.
And at this point, Kevin pointed out that she's using a metal spatula in a nonstick pan, which he says is a true moment of horror. I guess you don't do that.
I noticed it, yeah. Well, Julie, with the bird, is her foster daughter, and her foster father, Todd, is trouble.
Yeah, he's wearing a wife-beater shirt, so you know he's not going to be a good guy.
And he's not, yeah. Well, Todd wakes up with a hangover and he's grumpy and he hears Julie's bird singing. He is not happy. You bring this germ-infested animal into my house. He kind of goes on a rant and he grabs it, takes it outside and smashes it with a hammer while the kids are watching. You're making me do this, he says. And that's a phrase that will come back and haunt him, which I thought was really effectively used. Outside, Julie finds an odd-looking pendant. It's old, and then immediately starts hearing a high-pitched noise that hurts her head. Rebecca, who has moved to the country, has been assigned to watch over the Gibbs family, who fosters 4 children. And they explain how Julie is upset about the bird and just kind of took off. She left home and didn't come back for a long time. But then she showed up, kind of wandering in the middle of the road. And Rebecca asked Julie why she did this, why she was found, and like that. And the meeting goes well. Rebecca tells the Gibbs everything is okay. And that night, Julie hears voices, and we see that she still has the pendant.
What is this pendant going to lead to?
I bet we know.
Bet we not going to tell.
We shouldn't, yeah.
Well, the pendant belongs to someone, and the pendant draws them to the someone. That probably that person buried in the box. Just a wild guess.
Yeah.
And hilarity ensues.
Oh, not so hilarious. No.
All right, well, this was really good. The music, sound design, and lighting were much better than we usually see with an indie film, as are the acting and the pacing.
And Julie has a little foster brother and 2 little foster sisters, too. There's 4 kids living there.
Yeah.
And they play into it somewhat, too.
As you can probably guess from what we didn't tell you, there is a vampire.
Yes.
But the dramatic side of the story is with the abused kids is handled really well. Julie is clearly terrified of Todd, and not nearly as scared of the real monster that shows up later.
Which is ironic.
Angelina Danielle Kama stands out as Julie. Jan Birch as Frey is also good, although he's a little hard to understand when he speaks in his modulated monster voice.
A little bit.
You get the last couple of weeks we've watched some
not
vampire-type movies.
Not as strongly as that other vampire movie we saw.
Yeah, we haven't reviewed that one yet. Probably next week or the week after.
Yeah, there's another indie vampire movie that they really modulated the voices.
Couldn't understand them at all.
This was just, it wasn't that bad. I could understand.
Not quite subtitle worthy, but it's a little hard to understand.
Yeah.
And Sean Whalen and Maria Olsen are suitably scummy as the Gibbs. We were pleasantly surprised with this one. We liked it.
Yeah, we did.
And then, as always, we watch a short film. This one's called Overtime, directed by Craig D. Foster, written by him and Emma McKenna, stars Aaron Glenane, Adam Dunn, Ainsley Clouston, and Arka Das. 8 minutes, 24 seconds. And you can watch this one. There's a link in the show notes to let you watch this one on YouTube. How's it start?
Well, I'm going to just hop in here, too, that I often say how good shorts are, because there are so many good ones out there. This was one of my favorites. I'd really put this, I think, maybe in my top 10.
The problem with our shorts is there's so many of them.
There's so many of them. And
we never talk about bad ones because there's so many good ones out there.
Yeah, but I thought this one to me was exceptional. Yeah. Well, Ralph is working at the office, and he's frantic. He's got tons of stuff. His boss, Simon, brings him in a big box of stuff to do right before quitting time, and he's having to work overtime. Well, he works way into the night, finally finishes, and he's clearly in a hurry to get out of there. He's feeling rushed and pressured. On the way out, Simon is waiting for him. I know your big secret, Ralph, he warns.
And at this point, you're like, oh, what could his secret be?
But then Ralph gives him a severe look, and it seems he's only messing with him. Well, Ralph's phone warns him that tonight is a full moon, and he seems like he's very aware of that.
Oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah, he's got he asks, I think he actually asks, when is moonrise? And it answers, yeah. Well, Megan gets into the elevator with Ralph on the way down, and he sniffs her. He's starting to, you can tell he's feeling the change coming on, and it's suspenseful. It's like, oh God, is he gonna change in the elevator with her? And they get stuck for a minute, and then stuff happens. More happens after that.
Yeah, well, after a day of stuff like he's had, why not just go for it. You know, let
Yeah.
let your hair down.
Yeah, so to speak.
This one's really well done. The office scenes look real. The gore bits are nicely done, and it's actually really funny how one thing after another keeps coming up for him.
Yeah, and there was literally a laugh out loud moment for me. Something happens, and yeah,
A couple of them, I thought.
yeah,
And they're after the credits at the end. There's a tiny little final joke at the end of that, so be sure to sit through the credits.
yep,
Very, very, very good. Liked it a lot.
yeah,
All right, so over the past couple of weeks, we have been talking about the Subspecies series. We did the first Subspecies, I don't know, a year or so ago. You can look that up on the site. But we did part 2, 3, and 4 over the past few weeks, and those were from the late 90s. But now, 20-some years later, there's Subspecies 5, Bloodrise. Written and directed by Ted Nicolao. Stars Anders Hove, Denise Duff, Kevin Spiritus, and Stasa Nikolic. Same writer, director, cast as most of the other movies in the series. So yeah, after 20-some years, that's pretty impressive right there.
yeah, and that's the reason. I mean, it's impressive after all these years how consistent again they are. This one is with the others.
Yeah, that's what we've said.
Yeah.
Normally you have a really good first movie and they drop off after there. Or maybe the
there's
second
major
movie's a little
differences,
better.
big differences in the cast and the direction and the technical aspects. They kept everything consistent in all 5 of these, and so if you like the first one, you'll probably like the other 4.
I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that it should have been a TV series. This would make a great series because all the episodes just sort of flow together.
Yeah.
Well, this one's an hour and 20 minutes, and there's a trailer in the show notes. Now, as you can guess from what I just said, all the characters are quite a lot older in this one.
But-
All the actors are quite a lot older.
But it makes sense.
But it's a prequel.
Yeah.
How did they manage that?
They-
Well,
They do.
it's a prequel and an origin story. So we can ignore now that Anders Hove looks much older now instead of younger like he should, because it's so well made and it all makes sense. If you like the first 4 films in the series, you'll probably like this too. Although the story itself does shift. Since it's a prequel, this all happens like mostly in the 15 and 1600s or something like that. So it's a little more historical than the others.
Mm-hmm. But then there's time jumps of hundreds of years at a time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It takes time out for 100 years to learn, various skills.
the vampire ways.
Things like that.
Well, we open in a dark cave as a really ugly woman gives birth. Remember Mummy from the previous films? Well, she wasn't always quite that bad.
She was pretty ugly to start with, but she gets uglier.
Well, it turns out he's the offspring of the vampire Vladislas and the sorceress Circe. She's about to kill the baby, since the prophecy says he will one day kill his father. Suddenly, crusaders break in and stab the witch, who laughs. No one expects the Christian Inquisition.
Doesn't kill her, though.
The crusaders steal the cursed child and drop him off at a church, where they make it look more human. He's got these long fingers and claws, and they cut him off, and he looks like human after that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he eventually grows up, is trained in the arts of war, and becomes a hero of the Crusades. Eventually, he makes his way back to the castle of his father. He and the other crusaders walk through the tunnels before they come to Prince Vladislas, who's a Nosferatu-style vampire. Now, if you remember in the first film, the Prince Vladislas was played by Angus Scrimm, an old man with white hair. Actually, I think he was wearing a ridiculous wig in the first movie. But still, he was an old human-looking guy.
Big floofy wig, yeah.
Here, he's a Nosferatu kind of guy, so they've changed that.
Mm-hmm.
But the Crusader says his name is Radu the Fearless. Oh, he's a good guy. He's the one.
Oh, okay.
Vladislav vanishes, but leaves Circe there, who tells Radu about the prophecy. She also admits that she's his mother. Then she vanishes as well. And somewhere in the background you hear Sparkler the horror cat screeching in terror.
Our guest appearance.
Radu and Marius continue to explore the castle and find a woman and her child. Marius wants to kill Helena and Stefan right there. She says that Vladislas raped her and Stefan is the child, but that she's never tasted anyone's blood. And back in the first movie, we met Stefan, who is Radu's brother, because they kind of both have the same father.
Yes.
Okay, that's how that worked out.
Yeah. Brothers by a different mother?
Yeah.
Is that how the saying goes?
Yeah. Morning comes and Stefan screams about his eyes. He's never seen the light of day before. Marius does not approve of letting them go, so he leaves Radu's service. Helena, however, is obviously a vampire, afraid of the daylight. Well, that night, Helena rewards Radu with sex, almost. He's one of those highly chaste crusader types. So,
you betcha. Yeah.
She's only been lightly bitten, so she can resist things. Radu also has the Bloodstone, which he was given by the Crusaders, and she drinks from it. Of course, if you drink from the Bloodstone, you don't have to drink from people, so maybe she's a good vampire.
Maybe.
Well, we're not going to go any further than that with this time. You're going to have to find out how this all develops. We know where Radu winds up.
Yeah.
How does he get there?
Well, this tells it.
Well, Anders Hove has aged significantly since the previous film. He now looks a lot like Angus Scrimm did in the first film. From the trailers, I thought he was playing the same character, but he's not. There's a very resemblance, though.
Yeah, there is.
He spends most of the film without his iconic Radu makeup, but he's still plenty creepy. It's the origin story we didn't know we needed, but it's as good as any of the other films in the series. And if you like the previous 4 films, this is still good.
I was entertained.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as much as the first 4 because,
Prequel. We know it was going
it's
to
a
happen.
prequel, yeah.
Spoilers.
But it was good. It was fine. And then we got another new one just came out Thursday as we record this, called Soulmates. 2023, directed by Mark Gant, written by Chris Lamont and Joe Russo, stars Neil McDonough, Charlie Weber, Annie Ilanza, and Starletta Dupuy. 1 hour, 28 minutes, trailer in the show notes. What happened? Spoiler free. This kept feeling like it should have been more gripping than it was, like the stakes weren't high enough for the 2 main characters directly. But the cast was good, the sets were effective, and the script was clever enough to keep us guessing until the end what was really happening and who was behind it. It's one of those shall we play a game movies.
It was. It was very reminiscent of Saw.
Yeah.
With 2 people trapped playing the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't spoil it for us too far, but where does it go?
Well, we get shots of someone running through an elaborate maze as credits roll. And a woman wakes up in bed. She soon notices that she's handcuffed to a sleeping man.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I hate it when that happens. Yeah, there's a long chain connecting them. And he wakes up. He insists that 2 guys jumped him, and he is not behind all this. Well, they soon learn that the door and the window are sealed. He's Jason, she's Allison. And they find a business card, Soulmates. They get the door open. There's a very industrial-looking corridor outside. They find a monitor that plays an ad for Soulmates, a dating service. The matchmaker, that's Neil McDonough, he's the voice of Soulmates, comes on the screen, introduces a video of Allison doing a profile video for the service. And she says she recorded that 4 years ago. She's never heard of Soulmates. Another video comes on. This time it's Jason, also from years ago.
Somebody's scraping the archives.
Yeah. Well, the screen shows a terms of service agreement, and the walls start closing in on them. And they scroll through the long terms, and when they accept them, the walls stop moving. So it's kind of a traps kind of thing. Well, they enter another room. This time, it's one full of monitors showing scenes that make it clear they've both been victims of a stalker for a while now. There's lots and lots of private videos. I think they've been following us for years. Well, suddenly the curtain opens, and there's a man hanging above a giant meat grinder.
What?
Yeah. Questions come up on screen, and it's like a game show. If they get them right, the man is raised. If they get the answer wrong, he lowers.
Well, there's no losing in this game.
It's questions about each other. It's like a getting to know each other game, which would normally be fun and lighthearted, except, they miss a question and the machine grinds up the guy.
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just getting started here.
And that gives you an idea of the serious stakes.
Yeah, there's a lot more to this. But
Yeah.
it's a game show to the death, sort of.
Yeah.
All right, well, the acting here is fine. It's a relatively low-budget film, but it all looks pretty good. Although kind of it's a little underlit in some of the scenes inside the maze part of the place.
A little bit.
Well, we both expected that at the end, one or the other of the pair would turn out to be behind everything, because both of them lost people. They talked about the grandmother and the girlfriend or something. They didn't really care about these people, so that really wasn't much of a clue. But still, the whole thing was a lot more elaborate than we expected. It's a good concept, but it's really just one tormented scenario after the other, and since there were only two characters, we knew they weren't going to kill either of them right away. But the ending was not completely a surprise, but it was well executed. And we did definitely like it.
Yes, overall, thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, those are the only ones we're going to read to you today. But if you want more, you can read about Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, when Jason suddenly has supernatural origins that are revealed in the 10th movie of the series. Yeah, it kind of departs from the usual slasher formula and gets almost magical in places.
Mm-hmm.
But we did both like it.
Yeah, it was okay.
Not the best of the series.
Not the best, no.
It was all right.
But it was okay, yeah.
And we also look at Darker Than Night from 1975, also known as Más Negro que la Noche, Blacker Than Night. It's kind of a whodunit of a ghost story that makes you wonder what's happening. Starts out a little slow, but picks up after a while and moves to an interesting ending. It's very European and very 1970s, which we thought was kind of fun.
That sounds very Spanish, that title, I think.
Oh, it certainly does. I guess I said Italian earlier.
Said Italian earlier.
It sounds very Spanish. You're right.
Yeah. It's in some European country.
It was subtitled, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah.
It was.
Been a while. All right, well, that's all for this episode. Check us out at horrorguys.com and horrorbulletin.com. Pick up our books at horrorguysshop.com. Of course, if you don't remember those, just remember horrorguys.com. There's links to everywhere else from there. And tune in next week when we're going to have, believe it or not,
more movies?
4 movies and a short for you.
Hot diggity.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.